One should never be scared of committing mistakes while creating something new. Nowadays, the demand of creative writing is gradually increasing. Hello, my dear students, young aspirants, and seekers of knowledge. It is my pleasure to welcome you all. I am Dr. Rupkatha Ghosh. Today, I will be discussing about editing, that is a necessary part of creative writing. Recently, editing is getting to be a common as a profession. Just like lawyers and doctors, editors are becoming more and more socially ubiquitous. It cannot be considered as academic activity since it cannot be taught or learnt like any other discipline. Although the editor always remains behind the screen, it is on his enterprise that the fate of a publishing firm or a literary paper or a magazine hangs. The word editing is derived from Latin editus, past participle of the verb eder. It means to put forth, to give out, or to publish. As more and more people started discovering the joy of reading, faster reproduction methods of reading material came to be devised. Along with the readers, the number of writers also multiplied. The area of writing became diverse. With these developments came the need for scrutiny and selection of the right material and its orderly presentation, which in essence constitutes editing. As an editor, one has to go through the manuscripts and see what editorial changes are necessary. As an editor, one has to go through the manuscript thoroughly. The editor selects from the tons of material that comes into his mail. Then he cleanses and sorts out the best and cooks it to satisfy the cravings of a gourmet or the connoisseur, thereby adding a flavor to it. Therefore, the editor must have expertise on this field. No doubt, we hear about training courses and workshops for editors, but a good editor is as original and creative as an author. He learns by his art, by intuition, judgment, and long experience. In a word, one can say editing is a God-gifted capability or an inborn talent. Basically, a general editor is a good critic who not only finds fault but also sets them right. He is a man with deep appreciation of the finest thing in literature. He must have a Catholic taste which can take in the best from everywhere. In fact, editing is rather a recent activity. As more and more people started discovering the joy of faster reproduction, the methods of reading material came to be devised. Along with the readers, the number of writers also multiplied. The area of writing became diverse. With these developments came the need of scrutiny and selection of the right material and its orderly presentation, which in essence constitute editing. Let us now see an editor at work, be he a publisher's editor or a literary editor. The editor's job starts with the arrival of a manuscript at his desk. Surely, it is not like epiphany or divine grace, something which happens only once in a while. The manuscript keeps moving by every nail and at times are brought in personally by the authors. Since the authors are often a touchy lot, an editor should be a genial human being who should never forsake good public relations. He cannot afford to be rude or snobbish to his authors. He should learn to say with a smile, "Thanks, I am glad you thought of us. I shall certainly go through your manuscript with pleasure and let you know, even if it amounts to give a false hope to the author." Then starts the non-too-pleasant task of going through the manuscript. At the start of one's career as an editor, this may pamper one's ego, but as time passes, it becomes a daily drudgery. There is no escape from this grind. At times, the MS come flooding in like locusts, and it is rarely that an author brings in ready-made printed book of an article. Sometimes the manuscript may be so badly typed or illegibly handwritten that wading through it will become a torture, but the editor must endure it. The length of the manuscript should be first consideration. If the industry publishing only small books or the journal accepts only an 8 to 10 page article, then there is no point reading through a longer manuscript, even though it is written by a celebrity. If the author is popular and the writing seems good, it may be worthwhile to persuade him or her to prune it down to the required length of reconsideration. Otherwise, it must inevitably be returned to the author unaccepted. No editor on earth will ever have time or patience to go through every word of every manuscript. All that he can do is to read the synopsis first, in case of a book, and see if the subject fits into his scheme of things. No one wants a square peg in a round hole. If it does, he can then proceed with the reading. Reading is of several kinds. There is first the cursory reading. An editor is like a doctor who, by merely feeling the pulse of his patient, can sometimes say whether the condition of his health is good or not. The first few pages of the manuscript will tell whether it holds interest. Even if it does not, it is desirable to spend a few more hours on it. Dip in here and there, understand the subject matter and treatment, see the end, etc., to get the hang of the author's intent and purpose before finally rejecting the manuscript. The literary quality of the work, its topicality and future possibilities are also matters to be considered. Maybe a jewel is hidden away under dirt and slime, and some cleaning up might yield a fortune. A good editor should be able to take a quick prime facie decision on the basis of such a sampling. This is where his intuition works. There is an unwritten rule that what does not interest the editor cannot interest his readers, as he always carries his readers along with him. A good number of manuscripts could be disposed of after a cursory reading as said a verb, while returning the unaccepted material. One should see that it is returned neither too early nor too late. Sometimes, even before the author has left the office, the editor may have arrived at the decision that the manuscript is not to be useful for the purpose. But if the manuscript comes bouncing back to the author, the very next day he will think that the editor has not read at all. On the other hand, if the editor sits pretty and does not convey his decision for months together, he will be pestered with unnecessary reminders and phone calls. He must seem fair either way. After a cursory reading of few pages here and there, the work seems promising. Then comes the closer reading. Probably the manuscript may have to be read more than once fit to get acquainted with it as a whole, and then closely to see what it calls for in terms of actual editing. It is the second reading following the decision to accept the manuscript for publication that is crucial. The editor picks up the blue pencil and begins his work. In case of a book, as he goes on reading, he makes critical notes in the margin to refer back to the author for reworking the manuscript as required. In this regard to articles for publication in the journal, he may have to do the entire editorial work by himself. The critical notes may read as follows. Diffuse needs to be made sharp. Too sketchy could be developed further. Repetitious, the idea already occurs on the page, and etc. As the editor proceeds, he may correct mistakes such as in spelling, grammar and idiom, rephrase faulty sentences, cut down repetitions, prune the extraneous and the inept, sharpen whatever is diffuse and vague, and so on and so forth. There might be ambiguities and awkward expression that block communication. This will need rewriting by the editor himself or the author. The statements which are libelous, unfair, irresponsible and injudicious should be weeded out to guard against possible legal wrangles. Thus goes on the work generally in several progressive stages till the editor is fully satisfied. Now coming to the cardinal rule. The cardinal rule of all editing is that there should be no needless corrections. The editor should not meddle with the author's opinions or ideas. His intrusion should be limited to one of language and style and presentation to provide clarity, consistency, congezy, and better focus to the author's work. As for the ideas, he either accepts or rejects the manuscript as a whole, manuscripts with special problems. This is a crucial part of editing. Sometimes there might be a manuscript which is weak but so well written, well knit and well organized that its defects are hidden. Depending on the exigencies of the editor's needs, it may pass. There may also be cases where the content is good but the presentation is bad, even atrocious. It is then for the editor to decide if it should be accepted or rejected. In case of acceptance, he may ask the author to rework the manuscript. If the author cannot do justice to the editor, should be prepared to do it himself. An editor should be sure as to what he wants before putting the blue pencil to the paper. He should also have the confidence that he can carry the author with him in all that he does. Even when he is giving a better shape to the author's bad work, he should have the humility to feel that he is only subserving the author. After the manuscript has undergone the necessary editing, should be referred back to the author. His final approval taken for its publication before sending it to the copy editor. Editing may seem a drudgery, a thankless job, sometimes inviting blame too. But there is a kind of spiritual satisfaction about it. Editing is like midwifery, bringing a new life into this world. Carelessly done, it may result in the death of undesirable disfigurement of the child. But if well done, the author is always grateful to the editor. Who knows, a manuscript which has passed through the editor's hand today might turn out to be that one in million classic for all time to become. Let's take an example. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series is well known to everyone nowadays. But the fact is that it was rejected by 12 publishers and finally accepted by the Bloomsbury House, and nowadays it is like a cult classic. It is universally acknowledged that an author has to be his own editor. This is because any form of creativity involves the critical faculties of selection, arrangement, revision. Therefore, as an editor in the making, one should learn the art of scrutinizing a work as closely as possible. Now, I am giving an example of a manuscript before editing. This passage is taken from the road of Mulk Raj Anand that needs to be editing. After the first round of prayers, Pandit Surajmani felt that he had been constrained to neglect so august a personality as a landlord Thakur Singh when the latter had come into the temple. So he carried his white beard into the necessary dignity, issued out his staff into his right hand, rosary into his left. The sun was breathing fire across the world as it moved angrily over the plains into the hills which divide Haryana from Rajasthan. The sun was breathing fire across the world as it moved angrily over the plains into the hills which divide Haryana from Rajasthan. After the first round of prayers, Pandit Surajmani felt that he had been constrained to neglect so august a personality as landlord Thakur Singh when the latter had come to the temple. So he carried his white beard into the necessary dignity and issued out, his staff in his right hand, rosary in the left. The sun was breathing fire across the world as it moved angrily over the plains into the hills which divide Haryana from Rajasthan. Now, this is the corrected editorial copy of the manuscript. One may be able to differentiate the distinction from the first one and the latter one. The editor has incorporated punctuations and changes paragraph as required. So, this is the task of an editor. From this example, one can understand the job of the editor. One should have a thorough knowledge of various aspects of book publishing to become a successful editor. One must have a passion for literature and a spirit of inquiry. So, we can conclude by this that an industry's success depends on its editor. Now, I have completed the course. Thank you to all of you. Once again, thank you to the young mind and young aspirants. I hope this course is beneficial for the student of literature as well as for our future authors and future editors, those who are aspiring to be an editor. Once again, I convey my thank to IGNOU. This course is offered by IGNOU through the channel of SWAM. Thank you.